Hi everyone, good evening. I hope you're all well. I hope you've had a lovely day. This is not my usual video in April kind of vlog because I just decided today to be kind to myself. We have the retreat attendees coming tomorrow, and you know they deserve everything in order, and they deserve me in a space, a headspace that I can, you know, give them a good and proper experience. So today I wound and packaged about 610 gram minis, about 120 gram minis. I've been shopping this evening with Megan and bought new tablecloth and fresh flowers and all those sorts of lovely things. So tomorrow I'll get back to normal vlogging and I'll show you some of that retreat prep. But yeah, today I just needed to focus, you know, without distraction of wanting to make pretty videos. Jeff's chasing his tail. But I didn't want to not just put something up, even if it was just 10 minutes, because I've set myself this challenge and I want to really commit to it and to see it through. So I thought what I'd do is I put some questions out on Instagram today. You know, I put one of those things up, ask me anything boxes. So I thought I'd just sit with you for 10 minutes or so. The sun's setting behind me. So I thought we'd just sit for 10 or 15 minutes and yeah, just have a chat. So understandably, a lot of the questions were, how did I start dyeing? Why did I start dyeing yarn? What inspired me to start dyeing my own colourways, all around that sort of thing. So I thought, let's start at the beginning. So it was April, it would have been late summer 2016 or summer 2016, and I was making my mum a box of socks for Christmas. And the boxes, I'd got some gorgeous yarn from Faye of, well, it was B and Rose. She no longer dyes now, I believe. And I had some Rosie's Moments in there. I had Nora George, certainly socks, yeah, Coop knit socks, yeah. There was Opal for sure. Who else did I have hand dyed? Bakery Bears. Maybe Xena, Little Yellow Uke, or that might have been a little bit later, but you know, I had a nice selection of hand-dyed yarns, and I'd not long since got into knitting, really, that sort of last 12 months, and I would say I was making mum a box of socks for Christmas of 2016, and I stumbled across a video on YouTube by Hugh Loco showing how she dyed yarn. And I said to Nick, oh, wouldn't that be lovely to pop in a couple of socks in there that I knit, Mum, made from yarn that I dyed? That would make the gift even more special. And that was literally the inspiration. There was no, it was never a question of I couldn't find a colour I wanted, because that wasn't the case. I was loving the yarn I was buying and choosing to buy from. I just had to stop and cut that there because I'm in danger of getting super waffly here. So how did I get into dyeing yarn? The main reason was that I wanted to create a box of socks for my mum that included a couple of skeins that I dyed myself, which in my opinion made the gift that little bit extra special. I'd seen a tutorial on YouTube by Hugh Loco, how she dyed yarn, and I set off to our local junk shop. It's not a charity shop, it's the one next to the council refuge site where you can just buy all sorts of stuff that's too good to go in landfill. And I bought a fish kettle for £5. I bought 5 little tubs of jacquard dye, 4 little tubs of jacquard dye. I had pink, purple, olive and gunmetal. I had some undyed yarn, Drops Fable from the Wool Warehouse, and I just set to playing. I remember winding the Ball of Drops fable round 2 dining chairs to make them into some sort of mini skein, so I could practice with more colours. At that point, I remember I had no idea that the amount of dye, come back darling, the amount of dye I put on a mini skein would alter if I put it on a full skein. You know, I had no clue about any technicalities, but I had really good fun, and I made that gift for Mum, and that was it. 2016 then, our lives just turned upside down because Nick had a really severe breakdown. And I won't go into all those details now. It's not a secret. I'll happily talk about it freely another time, and have done publicly before. But yeah, he had a really severe breakdown. So I took a period of time from work because I had to care for him. He needed washing and dressing and feeding, and knitting then was, and watching podcasts was my lifesaver. Like literally, it got me through the bleakest time in my life. And I couldn't leave Nick's side. I would sit up day and night with him at this point. So in the dead of the night, when I was lonely, to be able to put on a podcast was just the greatest comfort to me. And yeah, and we were both off work. Obviously, Nick was self-employed. I took a period of unpaid time off to care for him. Ended up being about 3 or 4 months. So my yarn budget just didn't exist at that point then. So Mum and Dad, bless them, really kindly bought me a load of undyed yarn and even more colours, even more jacquard colours. And it was like, brilliant, that's it, I'm off. I can just dye yarn and knit away, and I don't need to worry. Because Mum and Dad recognised that it was that was my therapy. That was what was getting me through the difficult time. So I'd have a little play, and I'd dye a little bit of yarn, and then I'd have a little knit, and that was it. It was never a business plan. It was never a goal to set up a business. I was a full-time nurse. My career on the liver transplant unit was going really well. I had no intention of leaving, even after Nick's breakdown. It was a period of time that I was having off to care for him, and I was going back to work. That was never out of the question. So yeah, that was it really. In April 2017, I started to show some of the yarn that I was dyeing on Instagram. I've had a look back at today through my feed and got these dates, so it was nice to look back on actually. Yeah, I started to show some of the yarn that I dyed, and people made such lovely and kind comments, which, you know, was so encouraging. And they were asking me if I was going to start selling it, and I was like, oh no, this is just for fun, you know. And somebody said, well, if you do, I'd buy one. And I was like, what, really? What? You know, I just couldn't believe it. Yeah, it's crazy. And then my friend and I decided we were going to go to Edinburgh Yarn Festival in, what month is it in now? Is it the February? So it would have been 2018, would it? I can't remember. Anyway, I decided to sell these few skeins of yarn on Instagram that people had very kindly left comments about. And again, with more encouragement from friends and people I interacted with on social media, I just started showing a few more colours, and I'd say, well, if you want one, let me know and I'll dye one. And I sent a PayPal invoice, and that was it. And that continued, and it was just organically growing. I'd gone back to work by this time, and come the May 2017, I opened an Etsy shop. It's funny now because we laugh, because Nick didn't want me to do it. He was not discouraging, but he was like, oh baby, you've got enough on, you know, just keep doing what you're doing. If you want to sell a couple of skeins on Instagram, do that. Don't bother with all the faff of a shop. But me being me, and once I'm determined, I'm determined. I set up an Etsy shop. Very small scale, very low key. And the rest, as they say, is just history. It was really just an organic growth. It was never a focus. It was never a intention to go full time. It was never, it was just organic. Nick's health throughout 2017 was really variable, not just with his mental health, there was physical health issues as well. It was really variable. So once I'd gone back to work full time, it just wasn't working for our family. I'd get phone calls at work, and Nick would be having quite a severe panic attack, and I would just have to leave work and get on the train to come home, and talking to him all the time. It was a really difficult time in our lives, a really difficult time. And he was having surgery every 5 months or so at that point. So it was really difficult to maintain a full-time job. So I left my full-time job and I just worked on what they call the nurse bank here in the UK. It's like an agency, a supply teacher, if you will, that sort of thing. And I still worked on the ward that I was contracted for, but I just worked around needs of Nick and Megan. So I had a little bit more free time to play with yarn, really, and to dye a bit. And then quite quickly, it wasn't really, but I started to earn a little bit more. And then it became, I was earning enough that I didn't need to do as many shifts. And yeah, I don't know what the deciding point was that made me say, this is my job now and not nursing. Well, I suppose I do really. There's one or two things, but that's for another day. So yeah, that's how it all started. One of the other questions around yarn dyeing was where our inspiration came from. It was always around nature. So Nick's a fisherman. He sits and fishes. Megan did as well as a child with him. And when we used to go to Cornwall on holiday, I would always sit and knit, and they would fish, and Megan would dip in and out, and that was how it all came about. My original business name was Lakeside Yarns. Actually, it wasn't Lay Family Yarn, it was Lakeside Yarns. And I had little business cards made and yarn labels and all the things. And Etsy do like a search to make sure nobody else has that name, and they didn't. It was all good. And then somebody in America got in touch with me, and their brick and mortar shop was called Lakeside Yarns, and they weren't happy that I was trading via Etsy with that same name, even though they weren't on Etsy. But anyway, they weren't happy, and so I just changed it. And it was really upsetting at the time because I'd invested money into all this, I say branding, it was through Vistaprint. It wasn't anything, I didn't have a graphic designer then or anything like that. But nonetheless, money had been spent, you know. But she got, well, a bit aggy, and I didn't know what to do. So I just said, oh, don't worry. And then Lay Family Yarn it just kind of came off the tip of the tongue, really. But the inspiration has and always remains still nature and wildlife and birds. And when we moved to Ironbridge, our geographical location really came into key, and we did the Ironbridge collection with the bridges, and so very much inspired by our surroundings, really. Another question. What has been the highlight of your dyeing career so far, and why? Oh, Steph, that's a good one. A couple. I guess a standout one is was being able to move our business from our home into its own premises, to have a separate dye studio and a bricks and mortar shop. You know, that was a big thing. It was a scary thing. It was a real scary shift, you know, to go from that to that in a relatively short space of time. So that definitely has to be a career highlight. Another for me was doing Yarningham for the first time. I think that was in 2018. And the ladies there had asked me a couple of times, and I'd said no, just because I had zero confidence and major imposter syndrome. So I'd refused to do it, or declined to do it rather. And then Nick did encourage me, and he was like, just go for it, go for it. So I said yes, and then immediately felt sick with nerves. So I think with a couple of weeks later, I pulled out. The ladies wouldn't let me pull out. They kind of said, no, just sit on it, you know, just bide your time. And I just couldn't do it. And they were so lovely. They held my hand like I can't tell you. Anyhow, I pulled out. I did pull out. I said, it's just not for me. I felt sick with anxiety over it. No confidence or sense of self in the industry. And then at the last minute, Nick said, you're going to regret this, you're going to regret it. So I rang them up and said, oh, if you've got a little table in a corner, can I just shove me in there? And that's what they did. I just had a tiny little table up a corner. And that was an absolute career highlight for me. Having the confidence to do it and to be so well received when we did do it. Nick came with me, bless him. He hadn't got a clue, not a clue. He didn't knit at that point. He had no idea what he was talking about. Well, he didn't talk, he just sat on a stool. But yeah, so that was a big career highlight. And I suppose the third one has to be the Rainbow Chronicles. That, without question, was the biggest undertaking we've done so far. And I think we did it incredibly well. The sheer volume of the pallet packs we were just selling each month, you know, when I look back now, it's crazy. So again, that has to be a career highlight. Let's do one more and then we'll call it a night. Where do you get your inspiration from dyeing yarns? I think I've answered that one. How long did it take you from experimenting with yarn dyeing at home to owning a small business? That's from Meg. So yeah, 2016 I started having a play. April 2017 I tentatively started selling on Instagram. May 2017 I started selling via Etsy. It's only on Etsy about 6 months, and then I had our own website developed. What do you use to film and upload YouTube videos? Just my phone. I've got an iPhone. I film on that and I edit on iMovie and I upload on my iPad. How did you get into dyeing yarn? I think I've done that one. I think answering that one, what's your greatest achievement, Steph? When I think, talking to you now, that in 2016 I bought a fish kettle and 4 pots of dye and a ball of Drops Fable. 2017, April 2017, I sold my first skein of yarn, and we're April 2022 now. So in 5 years, I've gone from that fish kettle on my oven at the kitchen sink to having a purpose-built dye studio with 6 ovens in it, and a shop, and we run retreats, Nick's with me full time. I mean, that's got to be my highlight, right? See, that blows my mind, really, in just 5 years, when you think how far it's come, really. That blows my mind. So that's amazing, isn't it? Instagram, you know, I have such not a love-hate, but I have such an internal battle with it sometimes. It can be a real place of pressure for me, and it still evokes imposter syndrome, those feelings of I should be doing this or I'm not doing that, we're behind, we're not, our numbers aren't here and our reach isn't there and it doesn't get many likes, and you know, all these things that we know social media can do. But without social media, I would be lacking in my life because of the friends it's given me. Some of my best friends, my soul sisters, people who I truly, truly love with all my heart, have become part of my life because of Instagram. And I will always be grateful for that. So in answer to your question, Gaynor, yes, I love you with all my heart. I adore you, my darling, and I'm forever grateful that you're in my life. Sharon, another sister from another mister. My dear, dear friend Sharon, again, all came through Instagram. And Sharon asked, what's my favourite colour? So if I was on Mr. and Mrs., my favourite colour answer, and Nick would know this, is yellow. I don't ever wear, or I say don't ever wear, I rarely wear yellow. I don't particularly have yellow in my home, but yellow is my favourite colour. My favourite colour to wear is red, and my favourite colour to knit is pinks and peaches, and that's not really a favourite colour, is it? Got 3. Right, I'm going to leave it there so I can get this edited. I know this is a bit pants, but I still put video up every day, so I'm winning in life. Take care, my friends. I'll see you tomorrow and we'll do a proper little vloggy thing. Take care.